I do it with everyone. Black and white.
What?
Young and old. Straight and LGBTQ.
But, so...
people who I meet on the street.
Yeah, that's not good. Andrew Cuomo, under fire, not for killing all the elderly people in New York and then covering it up, but because the man apparently cannot keep his hands off other people's asses. Apparently, this is like the big thing over there right now. Now, you will recall that the current president of the United States, Joe Biden, said in an interview back in March that if the allegations against Andrew Cuomo were confirmed, that he should resign. And here was Joe Biden saying just that.
If the investigation confirms the claims of the women, should he resign?
Yes, I think he probably end up being prosecuted too.
And well, now it has been confirmed that this is precisely what Andrew Cuomo did. According to Attorney General Letitia James, who herself, I will say, has her eye on the gubernatorial seat. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Letitia James wants to run for governor. This is part of the problem with having an AG with her eye on that top seat is like they get you in the crosshairs and it can get real ugly real fast. But it's pretty obvious from, I mean, the report on Andrew Cuomo's penchant for ass grabbery is 168 pages long. So that is a lot of buttocks grabbed. That is a lot of body parts groped. According to the report, the direct contact with intimate body parts, including the touching of Executive Assistant Number 1's breast, the grabbing and touching of the butts of various women, including Executive Assistant Number 1 and State Entity Employee Number 1, and the governor's touching of Trooper Number 1's stomach and back unquestionably amounted to sexual harassment. In fact, the law provides that direct contact with an intimate body part constitutes one of the most severe forms of sexual harassment. The governor denies or states he does not recall any of these allegations of physical contact, but we find that the credible evidence establishes that the governor, in fact, touched these complainants in the way they have described. Those incidents amount to conduct that clearly constitutes sexual harassment. These are the findings of Attorney General Letitia James, elected Democrat. Second, the governor's numerous comments of a sexually suggestive nature, including discussions about age differences in partners at the same time as the governor asked about finding a girlfriend, Miss Bennett and Trooper Number 1, the criteria for the girlfriend being someone who can handle pain, Trooper Number 1, and experiences with and views about monogamy, whether an employee had been with an older man, feeling lonely and wanting to be touched, the attractiveness of the employee and comparing her to an ex-girlfriend, wanting to go out with two assistants and calling them mingle mamas, whether an aide would be willing to cheat on her partner, playing strip poker, putting a tattoo on the butt as opposed to the shoulder, and locations of piercings other than the ears, individually and collectively constitute unlawful sexual harassment. This is according to Letitia James, again, Democrat. We find these comments, some of which the governor denied, other of which he claimed were merely misrepresented, to be, by any reasonable measure, gender-based, offensive, and harassing. The law provides that comments such as these need not have been overtly sexual or motivated by sexual desire. Okay, first of all, it is important to point out here that sexual harassment law is super duper vague, particularly in states like California and New York. So making a joke at the office can easily be construed as sexual harassment. However, it seems that Andrew Cuomo had the unfortunate penchant for saying all these sexually suggestive things to aides and randoms that he met, like over and over and over again. The law is clear. These types of sexually suggestive comments, if made as a joke or otherwise, particularly when part of a pattern of comments and conduct, as it was with the governor, constitute unlawful sexual harassment. The complainants, not surprisingly, said that these types of suggestive comments made them feel uncomfortable, humiliated, unsettled, taken advantage of, uncomfortable, and creeped out. For the recipients of these inappropriate comments and jokes from the governor, we find the governor indeed created a hostile work environment. Wait, there's more. Third, we find that under the totality of the circumstances, even the governor's less overtly sexual comments that were nonetheless gender-based also created a hostile work environment. Although the governor and certain of his senior staff sought to downplay what the evidence has revealed as frequent gender-based comments and conduct by the governor as simply old-fashioned or cultural, neither explains nor justifies his behavior nor makes it non-harassing. For example, referring to female staff as honey, sweetheart, and darling, kissing staff members on the forehead and some of the senior staff on the lips, holding them tightly around the waist for pictures and other occasions, allowing senior staff members to sit on his lap at official functions, and lying down with his head on the lap of staff members who are women, we find, based on our interviews with numerous executive chamber employees, did in fact create a hostile work environment for many staff who were women. Okay, yeah, the last ones I'm going to go with, yeah, that's weird, okay? Like, if you got a guy who's 60 and he says to women honey or sweetheart, I don't think that that's like the end of the world. I know too many 65-year-old guys who address everyone that way and also address like pretty much anyone who's of a younger generation that way because they've been used to calling their kids that. That doesn't sound like Andrew Cuomo here. And Andrew Cuomo, I think it's a fairly good bet that when you take your head and put it in the lap of a female employee, that, what? Say, So, yeah, that's not good. As a matter of law, claiming that the gender-based behavior is simply a function of being old-fashioned or culturally more affectionate is not a defense to sexual harassment. One of his employees, named Miss Liz, experienced the work environment, saying, for whatever reason, in his office, the rules were different. It was just, you should view it as a compliment if the governor finds you aesthetically pleasing enough. So even though it was strange and uncomfortable and technically not permissible in a typical workplace environment, I was in this mindset that it was the twilight zone and the typical rules did not apply. What these witnesses and many others described is not just old-fashioned, affectionate behavior. It was sexual harassment, says the Letitia James report. Apparently, they also found that the executive chamber failed to report and investigate allegations of sexual harassment. This violated their own internal policies, according to the report. Like, people made reports. These were not investigated or followed up upon. So that is a serious problem. Here is the thing, though. So Letitia James says, I don't know about the whole prosecution of this thing. Not really. By the way, they also found unlawful retaliation. Right? This report concludes that the executive chamber, meaning Cuomo, engaged in prohibited retaliation against Lindsey Boylan in response to the allegation she made on December 13th, 2020, that the governor had sexually harassed her. Unlawful retaliation occurs when the employer takes an adverse action against an employee or former employee because that person made a good faith complaint, formal or informal, of unlawful discrimination or harassment. We find this occurred with respect to Lindsey Boylan. As detailed above, the incidents Boylan described in her Medium article and her testimony have been admitted and corroborated as well. So he engaged in a cover-up and the original activity. He engaged in an unwillingness to even investigate, so the governor's office did not investigate. However, according to Letitia James, they have no real feelings on whether a prosecution should take place, which is a real cop-out here by Letitia James, obviously. Like, the fact that she is not pushing forward with any sort of criminal prosecution is fairly incredible. But that is where things stand. So now the question is, does he live this down? Does he live this down? And the answer is probably, because if there's one thing that we have learned at this point, it's if you don't leave, no one can make you.
First, I want you to know directly from me that I never touched anyone inappropriately or made inappropriate sexual advances. I am 63 years old. I've lived my entire adult life in public view. That is just not who I am. And that's not who I have ever been.
So are Democrats in the state legislature actually going to throw him overboard? Are they actually going to toss him? I have serious doubts. I don't think so. I think he's going to stick around, and then he's going to hope that people forget about this, because they did the first time. Right? These allegations have been out there for a very long time. Everybody has known that Andrew Cuomo engages in this sort of behavior for years on end. Apparently, if you just wait long enough, it goes away.
There is another complaint I want to address from a woman in my office who said that I groped her in my home office. Let me be clear, that never happened. She wants anonymity, and I respect that. So I am limited but what I can say. But her lawyer has suggested that she will file a legal claim for damages. That will be decided in a court of law. Trial by newspaper or biased reviews are not the way to find the facts in this matter.
And I will say, I'm astonished. I continue to be astonished that CNN maintains ties with Chris Cuomo. Okay, there is a report appendix. It includes Charlotte Bennett's text about her interactions with Andrew Cuomo and an email from Chris Cuomo appearing to draft a statement on behalf of his brother. So apparently Chris helped his brother draft a statement responding to the allegations. Quote, questions have been raised about some of my past interactions with people in the office. I spent most of my time at work, and colleagues are often personal friends. I never intended to offend anyone or cause any harm. Sometimes I'm playful and make jokes. You've seen me do it at briefings hundreds of times. My only desire is to add some levity and banter to what is a very serious business. I now understand my interactions may have been insensitive or too personal, and some of my comments, given my position, made others feel in ways I never intended. I'm sorry and feel deeply embarrassed about that. Separately, my office has heard anecdotally some people have reached out to Ms. Bennett to express displeasure about her coming forward. My message to anyone doing this is you have misjudged what matters to me and my administration. You should stop now, period. This is a statement apparently drafted by Chris Cuomo on behalf of his brother, who at the exact time was was covering his brother on COVID, you'll recall, in the middle of this. right? It's pretty amazing stuff. So CNN has like zero credibility at this point, frankly, when it comes to covering these sorts of issues. It is a shame for the CNN reporters who don't suck. But the fact that Chris Cuomo gets to go out there and pretend to be a moral better for everybody continues to befuddle, to say the very least. So that is where things stand. I think that he probably outlives this, because that is the rule in American politics these days. It is that you basically, it's not that you that you die as a hero or live long enough to become the villain. It's that you die as a hero, live long enough to become the villain, or live even longer and then become the hero again, which I think will eventually happen with Andrew Cuomo. I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Cuomo pushes statewide lockdowns as a result of this. It's wag the COVID mask. I would not be surprised at all if New York kicks into high gear with regard to COVID, just so we can go back to Andrew Cuomo giving briefings about how necessary he is. I know what you're thinking. It's time to binge some more Ben Shapiro videos. Well, you are right. You should. But first, like and subscribe. Perfect. I'll see you in the next video.